are back, episode 150 or 147 of Journey to Million here on this Wednesday evening. And look, first round of playoffs has come and gone. We have 0 of our favorite teams left. So now we're just watching from the couch. We're coaching from the couch, and we have 8 teams left, the Elite 8, if you will. And we'll be breaking down all that good stuff in here and debating. I'm sure some of this head coaching stuff coming out and whatnot here. And how you guys doing?
Not bad. We had at least I had a lot of bad takes according to Drew.
Not a good week for Jared this past week.
Packers lost, so that sucked. But yeah, Texans lost.
That was my bad take.
We knew that the Bills were going to win by 30, so that was something we had right. And then the other game, Vikings, Darnold, yeah, that was bad. We got a few games right. I mean, the Commanders, Buccaneers.
We said Washington could make a run, right? We took Washington in that.
Yeah.
I thought at the end there. But yeah, I thought Green Bay, again, I think the score was less, indicative of how that team really played. How Green Bay, obviously, I was just saying before, Love did not play good. I mean, I can't defend Love as a Packer fan for that performance. Obviously, you could say, oh, that one interception was at the end of the game. Oh, that one, some of it was forced.
Get Garrett Wilson. Get a true number
People
one.
are saying Max Crosby, too. People say get Max Crosby and
obviously that would help, but it's not going to solve their problem as much.
Yeah. Well, okay, so from a non-Packer fan, watching that game, I mean, first of all, they got outplayed. They played terrible, sure, but you can't blame the refs for everything. But first of all, I'll just say a few things that were against them was obviously the first play of the game when Nixon got targeted. That should have been targeting, and I saw a clear recovery. They even reviewed it, and I mean, I don't know. That was something that Packers kind of got screwed on there. But besides that, I don't think there were many other things you can blame the ref or anything on besides just turnovers and not converting, missing field goals. I mean, it's just if they played semi-decent like they did all year, they win that game by 10. I mean, they just played probably their worst game of the year, I'd say, besides the game against like Jacksonville or something. Like they just did not step up.
I did think, I mean, obviously, I don't think the Packers should have got the call either, but Zach Baum actually tackled one of the Packer receivers coming back to the ball and Love's third interception at the end. Obviously, he's coming back for an underthrown ball in the end zone. I was like, oh, that would have been something you could have seen get called. But again, this Packers team, I think you saw their depth. This something we've credited this team for having all season. Really fall apart. I mean, you saw receivers that you would probably see in a preseason game getting, playing in the slot. Bo Melton. You saw, Malik Heath get snaps because you needed some guy. And then, of course, left guard. I mean, talk about a disaster. You could just sit and watch that position as an official and just wait to make the call because someone's going to make a penalty in that spot. So I think that Elton Jenkins injury was really a huge, huge turning point too.
Yeah.
Zach thinks, right? Garrett Wilson fixes this?
Oh,
Devontae.
No. Devontae. He's old. Get somebody that's going to be around for more than 2 years.
Well, if Devontae comes...
Can they spend? Do they have a lot of money?
So Packers, I'll just say in terms of players. Go ahead, Zach.
Here's my point also with spending. They're going to have to pay. They got 4 guys. If they want to stay with the same receiver room, you're either going to have to invest draft capital or money in extending these guys, replacing these guys anyways. Why not just do it with the guy that is a true number 1 receiver and not end up in the same situation you are now by using a second-round pick and getting another number 2 receiver?
Okay. Yeah, you're just saying get the guy who's proven right now and just go with it. This team you have. You know what Love is.
You have to spend money on what you have now anyways to keep it around. You're gonna have to spend more.
These guys
Get what probably gets you back to where you are right now. So just spend the money, spend the draft cap or whatever to know you improve it.
All year I was, asking that question about if they should like have a set number one, and all I got back was, no, I kind of like having 3 number ones. You don't know who to throw it to. You don't know who's getting the ball. You don't know who to game plan for. I was like, yeah, I get that, but don't you want like a solid number one like you had in Devontae? And they're like, well, yeah, but then he gets targeted 20 times a game, and they know it's going to him, and there was that connection that was there, but that was about it. So now you want that again? Like you traded Devontae to avoid having that set number one. You could build a young core and do what you're doing now. Like I told Zach, I think they're just a year away. I think you run it back next year, and I don't know. I feel like they lost a few games that they needed to win to get a better seed this year. That's the big thing.
But the difference with Rodgers, you see it in New York. He only throws Adams. You see other guys.
No. Like, Garrett Wilson had 60 yards and touchdowns. I mean, the last 5 weeks, he was.
Look at his targets compared to Adams.
Well, yeah, obviously
just
he's going to throw Adams.
Like it's not even close.
Yeah, you played with him for so long.
What I'm saying is, look at some of the other teams that have a true number one, right? Look at like Seattle. Like they don't have between DK and JSN. Like there is a target difference, especially this year. Obviously, JSN had a huge year, but it's not as big as it was with Rodgers and his true number one. You still need a viable number two, and your quarterback still needs to be willing to throw to other people besides just the number one. That's why I think the issue with Rodgers and Adams it was like you knew exactly where he was looking. Like there's at least 40% of the plays he was looking at Adams immediately. Right? Like you can have a true number one where that's
Rodgers,
not.
Or you're talking Jets, Rodgers.
Both.
Because there's a difference. Because when Adams got traded, like obviously he's going to throw him the ball more. Like he still targeted Garrett Wilson 5-6 times a game, or 7, 6, 7, whatever it was. Adams has always been his guy. Like even last year, when
yes, but he's too much of his guy.
He targeted Lazard earlier in the year too. Like he was targeting his guys that he trusts. Like he just has to trust receivers before he throws it to them. Same as like Tyreek and the Dolphins and Tua. Jalen Waddle had a bad year this year.
Compare Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
Okay, well, no.
Burrow throws at both of them.
I was thinking Burrow.
Basically the same loss.
But Burrow's the talent that.
Yeah, okay. I'm not saying Jordan Love is him. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you have 2 good receivers, you can still spread the ball out. You don't have to just 40-45% target share to one guy, which
Joe
is what
Burrow's
the issue
also the
with
top
Rodgers was.
Passing quarterback in the league besides like Josh Allen.
You're missing my point.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm not missing your point. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It's just...
Jefferson and Addison, look at the seasons they just had. I mean,
yeah,
they both had great years. Addison, you might say more touchdown wise, but to the point is a guy like Sam Darnold having those 2 receivers. I mean, that team still won 14 games. I know that I'm going to play the other hand in the playoffs here when we talk about that, but
I just don't know why you would want a number 1 target. Especially this year, like you have no trade value for Christian Watson. Like he's not going to have any value. Yeah, I get that, but that's the biggest strong suit of the Packers.
You keep Wicks, get rid of Reed.
Like, how about this? For example, do you think the Colts receiving room is good? Do you think it's like top 5 in the league?
No.
They're the only team in the league that had 3 receivers over 800 yards. The receiving room is probably the best part of the Colts.
Team.
No, they were a great team for receivers. They just didn't have a quarterback to throw it to them. My point is, it's always good to have that balance in receivers instead of that. Unless you have a guy like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson.
Zach wants that alpha. He wants an alpha.
Yeah, I don't think you always need that, though. That's not where you should focus. You should focus on the Packers need to focus on just bolstering up their secondary. Like you said, Carrington Valentine is not going to be a good second cornerback. If Jair is not healthy, he's number 1. Like, focus on that. Focus on a safety. Focus on, another offensive line
But
because
here's the
it looks
issue
better,
at
but-
the end of the year. Like you saw against Philly, the issue wasn't the defense. Biggest issue was the offense couldn't move the ball for the last 4 or 5 games of the year.
the biggest issue was just
flat out
Jordan Love had a
sucked.
bad game. I
But
mean, that's
do
all
we
It
it
wasn't just this week though. It's the last multiple weeks of the season. The offense
is.
just
He
sucked.
hurt his elbow. He hurt his elbow.
Week
He's
17,
not
his elbow
healthy.
was fine.
Yeah, no,
Didn't he hurt it week?
Week 17, his elbow was fine, and they still couldn't move the ball.
yeah,
It's not an issue of Jordan Love. It's an issue
Because
of
they relied too much on
something's
Josh
wrong with
Jacobs.
the
I think that's what
offense.
that's what LaFleur's problem was. He saw Josh Jacobs have a few good games and like, yeah, that's our offense, and they went away from passing.
Is that
Early in
where
the
you're
year,
going with
Jordan
this,
Love
Zach?
had games with 50+ pass attempts.
I've heard and talked to
think-
Packer fans about LaFleur's
Okay.
play calling.
I feel like sometimes he can't get stuck in his ways. I think it was last year. There's a game where he ran like 4 or 5 jet sweeps within like 3 drives. And it's like, come on, like, what are you doing? Everyone knows what's going on here. I think he does get stuck in his ways sometimes, but that's not exactly where I was getting to. I feel like there was a game or two where that could have been evident, but I think it's just also like it takes some of the pressure off of him as a play caller too. If you have a guy that you know you can trust to get open, whereas I think right now it's like, yeah, there's 3 guys, but each play, like you don't know who's going to be open, right? Like there's going to be multiple plays where nobody's open. Or you're going to have to be looking at all 3 of them to figure out who's open.
Yeah.
So that's why I think having a turnover one is like, yeah, your first read, second read, or whatever, but within those first 3 reads, like you just look at this guy and he's going to be there.
I mean, this Packers team still won 11 games this year, so I know that the ending wasn't the way.
It wasn't a pretty. Wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty. Oh, it
Doesn't
wasn't
matter
a
how
pretty
you win.
11.
It's the NFL.
Well, I'm talking about the
It's
NFL.
well.
I'm talking about winning these
Usually
games.
once you
because
have-
that's why we're talking about these. That's
Usually
why
when you have a
this.
ugly season, it ends like it did for the Packers.
Not
There's
last
not
year.
many teams that have an
Chiefs.
ugly season and end up in the Super Bowl.
Last year's Chiefs, they barely.
Yeah,
got
okay,
to
the Chiefs
playoffs,
do.
and they-
No other team does.
But
The
that's where I was
Bills,
going
last
to go
year,
with
the Bills. The
We're
Bills
talking
ended
about-
like
Yeah,
10-7,
season.
and they went on a run. Sorry,
I think
They
Jared's
lost in the playoffs.
best point on this though too is look at the Chiefs, going back to back and now the 1 seed. Look at their balanced receivers as well. I mean, just looking at that aspect.
They have
Not
Travis
having
Kelce, though. They have a number
think-
1. Travis Kelce. He's a number 1.
and he had a terrible year.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Eh,
My point, Zach.
I-
My point is like you look for teams that are dominant in the regular season. It's like, okay, so you look at teams like the Bills, like the Chiefs this year, like the Eagles, they were dominant. And you're saying that if you barely sneak into the playoffs, then you don't have a chance to win the Super, or you have a less, like you don't think you're going to win the Super Bowl. Look at the Chargers and the Texans, right? You thought the Texans were going to get blown out. But maybe CJ Stroud just
They're not winning this
knew
week,
he didn't
though.
need to.
I think they're gonna get blown
but
this
he
week
had-
too.
Okay. Well,
They're
listen,
not
he
going to
had
get
the
blown out
division
because the
sealed
Chiefs
up.
don't blow people out, but they're not going to win this week.
But he had a top 4 seed in the playoffs sealed. Yeah, they lost their last like 3 games or whatever it was. They didn't need to win those games. They go into the playoffs and they win by 20.
And do you
Some
also
teams
think
just
that
kinda
Houston
take a
won
back
because
seat.
of that offense?
I think that
CJ
Houston
Stroud did
won
not win
because
that game for them.
no, but he did enough.
I
Their
go with Jared on
defense
that.
just stepped up.
Yeah,
Like,
he didn't mess
he
it
did
up
enough.
enough.
Jimmy G made the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Jimmy G went on runs. He didn't do a lot. He just
Once
did
again,
enough.
Jimmy
The
G
defense
didn't mess it
carried.
up enough until the Super Bowl. And then he messed it up.
The defense carried. Like, I'm not saying CJ Stroud's going to win the Super Bowl. I think he's very much overrated. You know that about. I don't think he's a good quarterback. But my point is, like, you look at the Texans and Chargers last year. Stroud was a rookie, and the Chargers come in and they were down by 20 or whatever it is, and they come back and they win, or whatever happened, or not. That was the Jaguars 2 years ago, wasn't it? The
I'm
Jaguars
talking about the
against
James
Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like they didn't have experience and they lost. The teams that have the most experience usually win. So a team like the Packers are still young. You run it back with this team, you never know what's going to happen. I hate to keep going NBA. Look at the Bucks. Like they didn't have experience, and then they got the 3 seed. They didn't try as hard in the regular season to get that 1 seed. They go on a little run and they win the finals. It comes down to injuries, luck, who you play, and how good you're playing at the time. That's all it is.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, Jared. I don't think seed always matters. I mean, we've seen that over the years. We've seen that in multiple different sports.
I'm not saying it does, but you can't.
In football, it tends to matter the most, I'd say, because I mean, you look game in, game out. I mean, these guys playing 17 games. Usually in the NFL, it's a good enough sample size to tell us who are our contenders, and also B, who are the teams teams and players, who stand out over the course of the year. And obviously, right, a 14-win Vikings team eliminated first round. So, I mean, there's still some aspect to that where it's not always true, but you look at the other teams that have won 14, 15 games, look where they are. And then also, right, Baltimore, I believe, only won 12. And I say only because them playing Buffalo, we could easily see them a rematch of the championship game from last year. AFC.
Yeah. Even like you said, the 14 game, like the Vikings arguably were dominant during the regular season. Like they were winning games, right? And like you said, they don't have experience. They lost. Okay, whatever. Another example, like you look at the Rams. They didn't look good this year until like week 7 or 14, 15. They go on a little stretch. They end 10-7 or whatever they were, and they blow out the Vikings.
10-7,
I mean, now they're looking
got.
like a solid contender. They have a good offense. Their defense does enough, and they're right there. So it's not always about if they don't look dominant, they're not going to win it. I mean, it's not just the Chiefs. It's if teams have experience. Stafford's done it. They won the whole thing.
I really think they can win next week against Philly.
They could.
I mean, Hurts threw for 131 yards. I mean, obviously didn't need to throw a lot in that game, right? He threw 21 times. But the point I make is that A.J. Brown's playing hurt. I mean, no denying that. If they can stop the run, I think Packers did a pretty good job. I see Barkley averaged 4.8 carry. Obviously, with that big run at the end, he ran it, whatever, however you want to look at that. Barkley obviously played well, but you wouldn't say Barkley did what he did against the Rams earlier in this year. That's the scary part. They got to stop the run. Because what did he do against the Rams? He put up like 200-plus yards.
Rams don't have a shot this week.
If they can stop Barkley, I think they have a great shot. Their offense is lethal. I mean,
every time Minnesota had a big play, Sam Darnold took a sack.
Even that, their offense. The Rams are going to score 30 points. The Rams will score 30 points.
No, they're not.
I'd put money on it. The over-under on that game is probably like 53.5, I'd say.
I got to pull up
that. Doesn't favor them to score 30.
Rams plus, or obviously it's Philly minus 6.
Yeah.
The over-under is 43.5.
43.5. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe I'm a little.
That's a low.
Philly's defense is a lot better than Minnesota played yesterday.
What do you think? Okay, so Nakobe Dean, obviously there's only one. That's one guy. This whole defense, he's going to be out. I think it's a pretty essential part of their defense, though. I mean, Brown, it still appears he's going to play. And obviously, you could say same about. I mean, Rams got some questionable guys. Higbee, I mean, his situation's still in question, as well as a couple of their other defensive guys for LA. I guess my point is, I think they make this a close game. I mean, maybe you laugh at me when it's a 3-score game in the second quarter, but
I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but like the way the Rams were able to stop Minnesota is obviously the sacks were huge. Like the amount of big-time plays that Minnesota had that ended in a Sam Darnold sack, it completely ruined their first half on offense. By halftime, it wasn't 24-3 or something like that.
Yep.
And I think obviously Hurts can scramble a lot better than Darnold. See, he's not going to take those sacks. Philly's line is significantly better. So some of those 12-yard sacks on 2nd and 8 are going to turn into a 2-yard scramble, and you have 3rd and 6 instead of 3rd and 20. It's just going to be plays like that the Rams aren't going to be able to make against Philly that they did against Minnesota.
Well, you can't just promise that, Zach. Who thought going into that game that the Rams would get 9 sacks? Like, who thought that?
No.
You can't just say, well, if they do this, they're going to win, because you never know how.
You think Philly's line is going to give up 9 sacks?
Well, no, I'm not. I
don't
think
going to give up 4.
I don't think that, but maybe Hurts will throw 3 picks. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Saquon fumbles twice. There's always a chance. I mean, I'm not saying that the Rams are going to easily win this game. I think Philly's going to win. I think the Rams offense is too good to not score 25 points. Yeah, it'll be close. I think it'll be like 28-25 or it'll be close. I don't know.
Well, does it surprise you this is the second close game this week? Probably shouldn't.
The second what?
Second closest in terms of spread.
I'm assuming
obviously
Baltimore.
Yeah,
Baltimore.
And that's actually Baltimore -1. That game is going to be crazy. Baltimore's favored on the road? Yeah, I read that right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Baltimore is favored
this year, so.
Yeah, but still.
Do you guys think Buffalo is? I don't know. I look at Buffalo; their defense scares me.
Their defense just played very well, I thought, last week. I think Buffalo's defense has improved the last few weeks. Obviously, that's the weak spot on this team if you want to point somewhere. So, it does get
when I look at that, it never I'm just never confident their defense is going to get stopped, especially against offense like Baltimore. Whereas, if it was Kansas City's defense, I'm like, yeah, they're going to give up points, right? Baltimore's offense is good, but they're going to get some stops at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Even if Kansas City's defense hasn't been phenomenal.
Yeah. I see that. But I mean, you got to think if you're this far in the playoffs and if I'm the Ravens, that you're going to need a defense for this game. You can't give up 40 points. I'm sure I hate to say their defense might not have been playing as hard the whole season, but players make plays, they have a solid defense. They have names that'll step up. I mean, I hate to be that guy that's just oh no, they'll be fine. They have experience, but I mean, that's normally what it comes down to in the playoffs is just who's done it before and who's going to do it again. Who they rely on their leaders and if they can't stop, the Bills, then that's just how it ends. I mean,
I feel like the issue in the first game, at least, and I mean, we've seen it with Buffalo before, is teams have been able to run the ball really well against the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And at least according to the commentators from some of the games I've listened to, it's because Buffalo's defense is undersized. Their D-line is undersized, which obviously doesn't go well when you're going against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen in the past where Baltimore struggled in the playoffs is when they can't run the ball.
But they haven't had Derrick Henry in the past either. So that's,
correct.
Something to look at, but I don't know. I think it'll be a close game. I think that'll be that'll be the closest game, I think, personally.
I mean, if you're Baltimore, you got to come out and you're committing to the run, right? The whole first quarter, even if it doesn't work, you're committing to it.
Supposed to snow, I think, too, a little bit, right, during that game. I read weather was going to be a little favor the run game, if you will. So, I mean, James Cook has played very well this last stretch of the year too. So, I think on their side too for running the ball. I think we could even see, right. I mean, obviously you take Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry over what Allen and Cook can do, but I think it's closer than you'd think, right? I mean, in terms of what both of those rushing offenses can do.
I have a question for you guys. So I know they say that postseason doesn't play a factor in the MVP race, but do you think that whoever wins this game will be seen as
postseason?
They vote before postseason.
They've already voted?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? Because Lamar got first team All-Pro.
I think Lamar's going to win it.
Be indicative of him being the MVP?
We've seen it happen before. It's not.
He'll win it. Does Lamar have more turnovers than Josh Allen too?
No, Allen has 2 or 3.
Doesn't Lamar have 4 fumbles or something?
Lamar's stats are objectively better than Allen's, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same argument as last year. Why did Lamar win it over Josh Allen last year? Allen's stats were better last year, and
he's got the rushing yards. He's got.
It was who was the 1 seed. So to Zach's point,
which the issue now is Buffalo doesn't have the 1 seed; they have the 2 seed.
But Buffalo also has beat. I mean, I can't look at who's beaten who and stuff.
They've beaten the best teams. Yeah, they beat the Chiefs.
Baltimore beat Buffalo.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Pretty convincing.
The other narrative, though, Zach, is What if Buffalo or what if Baltimore? What if the Steelers won the division? Let's say, can a wild card team have the MVP? That's usually where voters get lost on that.
Well, that's why people thought Joe Burrow should have been MVP, but they missed the playoffs, so there's no chance. If they were the 5 seed, he probably wins MVP. I mean,
I think still Lamar would.
You think so?
But he'd be. Well, it's tough because I mean, look, it's hard to say if he'd be the finalist still or who would be in the top 3 just because what Saquon's done. The voters are going to want to include him just as acknowledgement of the historic season he had.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Allen should have won last year. Like if I was choosing last year, I would have chose Allen. I think Lamar's going to win against this year, just because I feel like he's had more. Like,
is there any voter fatigue that goes into it though?
Allen's minus 300 right now. Lamar's plus 240. I'll just throw that out right now.
Okay.
So that's a little surprising, but to Zach's point again is, it still is possible. So the order goes. I mean, we can guess the top 4. It's exactly how he said it. I mean, take Allen, Lamar, flip flop them, whatever you want to do with them. Saquon at 3, Burrow at 4. Can you guys name 5, 6, and 7?
Is Jared Goff? Jared Goff's probably one of them.
Jared Goff is tied for 5th.
Yes, I think Mahomes is up there.
Mahomes is 7th. The guy who's also tied for 5th.
Probably yeah.
I'm assuming Hurts.
Nope. This team also did win 14 games.
Okay.
It's Darnold. Sam Darnold.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
he'll win comeback player, right? Won't he?
Burrow's got to win that.
It's Burrow. Yep. Burrow's
what will he win?
4,000.
Most improved? Is there a most improved player?
He'll win.
No, there's nothing.
He'll win nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. Also, if Saquon doesn't win it this year, which he's not, there's never going to be a position player. It's always going to be a quarterback.
He's winning OPOY though. I mean, as he should.
But it's stupid because Derrick Henry didn't win it. Jonathan Taylor had 2,100 yards. He didn't win it. Saquon has
Chase. Henry's going to finish above Chase, I think.
Yeah,
I would think.
Chase isn't even top 5 position.
I mean, okay. Looking at the historical presence of their seasons, there's been, I think there's 9 guys that have ran for 2,000. And there's been 5 Triple Crown winners in the history of the NFL.
JT ran for 2,000, just saying. Continue.
I don't care, but okay.
Bucky Irving, Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
So should you be rewarding something that is 1 out of 9 versus 1 out of 5?
What do you mean 1 out of 5?
Is Jamar Chase just getting discounted a lot because he plays with Burrow? If he was doing this with
it's
Sam Darnold, would he be?
Team didn't make the playoffs, and he's not the best offensive player outside of a quarterback.
Looks like I know that narrative. I know it's stupid, but I think that's a big part. That's why I scoffed at it a little bit because I'll read you some of the finalists too. But obviously, looking at this aside,
for offensive player of the year, I don't agree that it should correlate with wins.
If you don't think Saquon should win OPOY, I don't know what you're on. I want what you're on.
I think it should be a lot closer than everyone is thinking it is.
Dude, this guy's insane. No, it shouldn't be. He is the reason the Eagles have 14 wins. He's the only reason why they're so good.
Do you think? Okay, I think this is where Zach's going. I think so. Henry's the betting favorite ahead of Chase. I think that's where you get lost. I think that's where you're really.
Yeah, I'd put Chase above Henry probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think those two will be close. I think it'll be the question of who finishes second or third rather than who finishes first. Obviously, to Zach's point, if you look at frequency, what Jamar has done, Zach, I feel has been discounted because his team didn't make the playoffs, which seems crappy, but
I think it's maybe
it's impressive.
He gets discounted because he plays with Burrow.
You think that his performance is tied to the quarterback?
People say he's playing with a phenomenal quarterback. He should be doing good, but Saquon's playing with a top 2 offensive line.
Yeah.
Should he not be?
All these guys are in great situations. Derrick Henry. Well, I mean, obviously, you would think that.
But Zach, if you discredit good running backs for having a bad or a good offensive line, then you have to also credit running backs with a terrible offensive line that might have had a worse year. Like, Saquon has a great offensive line.
I'm not saying he should be discredited for that, but I'm saying Chase should be discredited because he's playing with Burrow.
I don't think he is. I really don't. Because, like, you could say the same thing when Tua had a big year last year, and Tyreek Hill was a top receiver. Did he get discredited? I don't think so.
No, because people don't look at Tua the same as they look at Burrow.
Well, last year he had like 5,000 passing yards. Tua threw for 500 yards a game. Or not a game, but he had games where he threw for over 500 yards, 400 yards. Like, Tua might have had a better season last year than Burrow did this year, which is saying something. I mean, obviously people always discredit Tua because they hate how he plays, and you guys don't like Tua. I love Tua, and I thought he had a great year last year, but Tyreek Hill didn't even come close to winning the award, the MVP. It comes down
MVP.
to
a receiver's never going to win MVP.
Well, that's what I'm OPOY. Even that, like, did he win OPOY last year? He did, right? Tyreek Hill did.
Didn't he?
I think
he did
because
right?
we had like it was Jefferson and Kupp the years prior,
and
then
well, either way, like my point is that I don't think Burrow discredit Chase because of Burrow. I mean, I think that's just more credit to Burrow that he's able to find Chase, and Chase is a great receiver that he, puts up the stats he does. I don't think there's any discrediting. I think Saquon just had a better year, and Derrick Henry's. I mean, I think what it is that Henry has bigger plays. Like Chase will catch your 10 to 12 catches a game, 2 touchdowns. Like he'll have bigger games, but he's not getting that 98-yard touchdown. Derrick Henry bursts one and he's gone. Then it's.
Have you not watched Ja'Marr Chase play?
You're so high on Ja'Marr Chase. You love him. You even said like week 5 or week 8, you're like Chase number 1 next year, right? Chase
Hill was runner up to CMC.
One.
CMC. It was CMC and then right, of course. But then Hill was runner. Yeah. Okay. So back to Ja'Marr Chase.
Did you not watch the game against Baltimore? No T. Higgins. He caught like 250+ yard touchdowns. What do you mean he hasn't get big plays?
One game.
That's Chase's game.
One
That's
game.
What he does.
I had him in fantasy. He had like 50 fantasy points that week. I know. That's what I'm saying. But I don't know. I think it also goes with like team. It's team success. It really is. It's not. I don't know why you're so high on Chase. He's a great receiver, yes. But you saying he's by far like he should be ahead of Henry. He should be. It's not definitive like that. It's 1A, 1B.
You're saying all awards should be based on team wins. If your team doesn't make the playoffs, you can't.
No, I'm saying that's what they base it on. That's what they base it on. I'm not saying that's how it should be. I'm saying that's what it is. That's why Burrow's not in conversations because they didn't make playoffs. If they made playoffs, he's probably finishes second MVP. I don't know. It's a big year for MVP this year. I mean, Allen and Lamar are both front runners, but
means like he only had 1,700 yards receiving.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great year. I'm not discrediting Ja'Marr Chase at all. I'm just saying, like, Saquon was better. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he'll end up being runner-up, but I'm just looking. Yeah, his year is crazy. He averaged over 100 yards a game. I didn't realize he clipped. It was just 100.5, so he just got over that.
17 touchdowns.
17 touchdowns.
By far led the league. I think next receiver had like 12.
Yeah.
Okay, other award. I wanted to just mention a few other guys. So defensive player of the year right now looks like it's TJ Watt's award. Obviously, Surtain's going to be weird.
Surtain's going
to Right now, Watt's the betting favorite, but that one arguably is a toss-up. I think
that's how they just give it to names. I really think they do. Like, I know TJ Watt's great. He had a career, like, not career bad, but the last, 4 years, this is his worst year by far. He only had, 12 sacks, in comparison to, 18 last year.
Well, I mean, I don't think sacks are indicative of who wins, because, Trey Hendrickson, for example, led the league in sacks. You wouldn't think, with, I think it was 18.5. He's number 6, I mean, in terms of, tied for 6 in terms of betting favorite. So,
yeah.
And I also don't think the betting favorite exactly is going to be the exact order.
So do you have to be on a good defense to be Defensive Player of the Year.
It comes
I
down
think
to
that
more,
plays a part
more
of it.
flashy plays. I think it's just more how much you impact a game. Obviously, that's what it is. And TJ Watt does.
So why
lot.
isn't Trey Hendrickson higher than 6th? He led the league in sacks.
Well, Myles Garrett is 3rd. Do you think of Myles Garrett?
That's weird. Yeah, because their team sucks. I don't know. Maybe it's a playoff thing. Maybe it's how much you do help your team win instead of just impact you had. I don't know.
Looking more at TJ Watt's, he forced 6 fumbles this year. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about impact. I mean, that's if you call it the equivalent of a interception for, obviously it's not. But I'm just saying in terms of for what an edge rusher can bring to the table. I do think I'm looking at his stat line. Yeah, sacks were down, but 11.5 only. I say only, but his year still ended up being very effective.
Most I think 80% of what they look at is team success too. Like you could argue Mahomes was a bottom 10 quarterback this year. You could argue that he was terrible, but he's top 5, top 6 MVP. Like it's team success. Zach.
He was
Zach. This guy was awful. I will read his stats. He was awful up until like week 16. He was terrible. He was like so bad.
Yeah, read the stats because I guarantee they're not bottom 10 quarterback stats. Either
they were
just overrating how good quarterbacks are.
They were between. I think it was between like 10 and 16. Zach.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mahomes is in bottom 10.
I get, but to Jared's point, he's not the top. He's not number 7 in the MVP vote. He should not be in the top 7.
From weeks 3 till 4, 5, 6, 7, his highest quarterback rating was like 89, 87, 80, 89, 86, 44.4. Then he had a few good weeks at like 110, 100, or 116 and 96. Then he had weeks of 84, 88, 78. I look at quarterback rating. That defines how good of a game you had. 93. He only had 4 games above 100 this whole year. And if you look at last year, I mean, it's by far, like he averaged over 100 last year. I don't know. That's what I look at to base on how good of a season you had. Over the last 4 years, this is by far his worst year. By far. He also had like a lot of interceptions this year too, which is different than last year's. But
can I find something we can agree on? Coach of the year, I think we should be able to agree on, and offensive rookie of the year.
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, just think about the expectations.
But why does he get credit and not Darnold? Like, I guess he is getting credit because he's.
Did you see what Darnold did last night?
1 bad game, 2 bad games.
I think if you could use postseason, I think that award got sealed the most.
Yeah.
Week 18 sealed that enough.
Well, yeah. Jaden Daniels, though, I think then for.
What about Bo Nix? Where's he on that?
Second, but it's
but like far. How far is it? Far.
Yeah, it's minus 1,000 to plus 3,000. Or Bowers is ahead of Nix, so it's minus 1,000 for Daniels, plus 3,000 for Bowers, plus 5,000.
Should not be that high.
Bowers had the best rookie year for a tight end ever.
What do you mean he shouldn't be that high?
Wait, hold on.
Not good, but
Zach, you're Mr. Frequency about how many things happened. He had number 1 of 1.
This guy set records. This guy was insane this year.
Yeah, Zach.
What record did Jamar Chase set this year? 0.
Yeah. All right. If you're looking at that, Neighbors was 4 receptions behind him and didn't play 2 games.
Yeah, we're looking at counting stats. Zach, we're the voters.
Yeah. What Drew said.
But no. I agree with you, but I mean, if you look at the awards, I mean, these are heavily favored by who has the best counting stats. I think that's why TJ Watt's going to win over Surtain for Defensive Player of the Year. Think of the counting stats.
Is he like 3rd or 4th? Is he up?
He's 6th, I believe.
6th. Wow.
Andrew Van Ginkel is 4th from Minnesota. Well, all the pressure and all the blitzes he had, and
defensive rookie of the year is Is that Jared Verse? Is he?
Yeah, I mean it's
by far.
It's Verse. Yeah. I mean Quinyon Mitchell is plus 700.
Okay,
but
what happened to Latu?
Latu just sucked. I mean, he doesn't
assist.
suck. He was a bright spot, but when you're on a terrible defense, you can only do so much to make an impact. Like he'll get a tackle for loss for 3 yards. It'll be 2nd and 13, and then we give up 30 yards the next play. So what did that tackle mean?
For loss is a counting stat.
Well, okay, so he gets a sack. He had a few sacks this year. He gets a sack for 9 yards, and the next play we give up an 80-yard touchdown. Well, that sack doesn't look too big anymore, right? Like
it's a counting stat, though. So
well, yeah.
Award,
if it is a count, well, it's also team success too. Like I said, that goes into it a lot, which is kind of the reason why.
Okay, you want to look at some numbers here? If the Packers traded Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed, they'd have a total dead cap of $1.3 million. Keep that in mind, right?
Okay.
So their cap hit for this year, they'd be saving roughly 3.3-ish million.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go trade our top receiving pick of last year just for nothing. When he's only going to be better and better as the years go on.
Well, I would say trade one of the other guys, but you're not going to get anything for them. Reed will get.
We're talking about
We're
Reed.
not trading Jaden Reed.
Yeah,
so
Reed's
in his last year of his contract, right? Year 4 next year. Doesn't have a fifth year.
3.
Wasn't a first
Year
3.
Yeah, he was a second round pick.
My bad. But he's extension eligible. I thought next year.
3, yeah.
Yeah,
this guy had a breakout year this year. He was great this year.
He's very.
Why would you trade your best receiver?
All right, so maybe he was incredibly consistent. He was either going for 140 or going for 4.
He didn't get targeted one game. That's not on him. That's just.
He had a lot of games that were stinkers.
Yeah.
All right,
he
trade
was
Dobbs.
a fantasy starable even.
Dobbs, yeah, trade Dobbs, sure.
Trade Dobbs.
Good with that.
So then you can't trade Wicks. You're not going to get anything for Wicks.
You're not getting much for Watson either. I mean,
not getting anything for Watson. That's what I'm saying. Trade.
What are you getting for Dobbs?
Well,
hold on. Let's backtrack. 5th round pick, 4th round pick.
Yeah.
If that.
I would say trade for a veteran corner. That's my proposed solution. Add some guys in the secondary. And
you're limiting your window by doing that.
Valentine's a free agent.
No, you're not.
I'm just trying to think.
Yes, you are. Trade for a veteran cornerback. Okay. So who are you looking at? Like old, or like
somebody's like 28, 29. Yeah, you got him for 2 years.
You're not going to get one of those for. You're going to have to give up a lot for that.
Dante Jackson went for Deontay Johnson last year. He had a solid year.
Dante Jackson isn't a top 10 cornerback.
I'm saying trade for a top 10 corner. I'm saying
trade
a veteran
for somebody
that can play and doesn't
like a Stephon Gilmore
by 20 yards.
Like a Stephon Gilmore. Trade for him.
No, you can get more than that for Dobbs.
No, you won't. Dobbs is worth
yes,
like
you will.
A 5th round pick. Stephon Gilmore is probably worth about the same.
He's not worth a 5th.
A 6th? Ooh, okay. Like you don't trade for someone that's 30-some years old. It just limits your window. You have a young core. You have the youngest team in the league, and you're worried about competing. Oh, we lost. We didn't compete this year. Oh, we have the youngest team in the league.
Yeah,
let's
Jared,
go blow everything up and trade for all these.
Expire. So you can
Why
have the
would you
youngest
trade?
team in the league,
It
but
makes no
in
sense.
3 years, everyone's contract's expired. And guess what? You either won something or you're screwed because you have to pay everyone.
Do you think that the team invests in these players? They draft them so that they pay them when their contract expires because they think they're going to turn out. Why wouldn't you just sign these players to extensions? That's what you do. If you want to keep your core, you sign them to
can't
extensions.
extend everybody. It's not how
Colts did it in the offseason. They didn't lose a single
works.
player. I mean, the Colts suck, but still, I'm just saying they signed Zaire,
Yeah,
they signed Pittman,
the team
they
that
signed
hasn't
JT, Kenny
made the
Moore.
playoffs in how many years is the
Would pay?
peak picture of
I'm
how
just
you
saying,
should run a
no.
football team.
No, that's why I didn't say it. I'm just saying
There's a reason
can do
GM
it.
almost got fired this year.
you can easily do it if you have the right players to re-sign. We re-sign the wrong players. If you want to invest in your young core like you have, there's no problem with that. Don't say you can't do it
You
because all
still
these players.
can't pay everybody.
Then don't pay Christian Watson. He's worth the most. I don't know.
This point, like to Jared's point a little bit, but it depends on position though. I would just push back a little bit on that because you're not Quay Walker when he's extension eligible. Is he gonna get an extension? Maybe. I mean, I just am thinking like you think Cooper. I think Cooper's gonna take his. I mean, Cooper's gonna be cheaper. I mean, just think about years, right? I mean, this was his third year already. My point.
I doubt
is
they pick up Quay or Wyatt's with your option even.
I mean that's where I'm going with this is I think to Jared's point, you draft. I think they drafted Jordan Love to be the franchise quarterback. You bet they drafted him to extend him. They drafted, quarterback that spot there. But I don't think you do that position by position. I mean, I think you draft a guy too for having a cheap. Think about that for 5 years. If you draft him in the first round, having that option to alleviate some sort of salary there. I think that's what we're going to see with the Vikings. I think they're going to go with McCarthy, and they have his time. Right, they paid Jefferson. They can focus when the time's gonna come for other guys. They have the most guys that you have to pay out of any roster right now in terms of unrestricted free agents, the highest percentage. Packers are number 32.
Minnesota's entire secondary is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, I'm not arguing like paying guys you draft, but I'm saying I think they should go in a different direction than the team they have right now of guys they drafted. So going in a different direction. You're not going to pay the guys that you drafted because that's the same direction.
Jared's shaking his head.
I hate to just disagree with everything you say, but I'm gonna. There's so many reasons why you don't do that. Okay, so let's just keep this short. Last season, when Love started terrible, everyone was calling for him. Get Love out of here. We need a real quarterback. He sucks. He's terrible. Some people held on hope. Sure. I'm not saying everyone did, but a lot of people, when they were 2-5, they were saying, Love is terrible. Get him out of here. Then they started to blame LaFleur. Get him out of here. He's terrible. Oh, he sucks. They're in the playoffs every year. They are always good. So that's one point. There's no reason to call for all these people when they have a few bad games in a row. Now you're saying that, let's just get this straight, the youngest team in the league that made the playoffs 2 years in a row with a rookie quarterback last year and now a second-year quarterback this year, they had a better season this year. They won 11 games. They won 9 games last year. Now you have 11. Give it one more year with this core. You win 13. Let's just say. I mean, you got third in the division. You're going to have an easier schedule. I don't understand why, we have the youngest team. We didn't make it, so we have to blow it up and not sign all these players. Keep your core. Keep your team. Keep your offense. Keep your receivers. Keep your coaching and run it back. You're going to be fine.
They looked worse this year than they did in the last 10 games last year.
How?
With the same team.
In what ways? In what ways? The first 8 weeks of the season were terrible for the Packers. They were awful.
The last 10.
You lost to the Giants.
I'm not saying the first 8.
You lost.
Yeah, they looked awful the first 8. Yeah. Okay. I'm saying the last 10.
So the last
10.
They're
running to get to the playoffs and their playoff games. They looked a lot better than they did at any point this year.
The Packers in the last 10 last year went 7-3. The Packers in the last 10 this year probably went 6-4, 7-3. I mean, they played better teams. You also had a division with the Lions and Vikings. Amazing.
Historically good division. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not going to play that well against your own division when the division is just the best. It's hard. That's why the Bengals and the Bills or the Bengals and the Ravens, Steelers, they all have different division winners every year because they haven't had the same division winner in 20 years because every team is good sometimes and they just compete against each other.
Yeah. You don't go 0-6 against the 3 top teams in the NFC because there's not an issue. If this was any team that had a single person that owned the team, there would be major changes because otherwise Gutekunst and LaFleur would be gone after next year. There would be changes this offseason.
Zach does not want to be in Steelers limbo. That's what this is called.
That. No,
that's what it is. And Zach's fearing, and it's a valid concern of many fans, is you got to make some sort of change because we don't play a full season we won our 10-11 games. Okay, playoffs, there we go. But I mean, they won a game last year, so it's not like we can't. I mean, we can't overreact. They lost to the 49ers last year. What if Philly makes the Super Bowl? What if Philly wins the Super Bowl? Are you looking at this year and saying, we lost to the Super Bowl champ? Are you saying? I mean, obviously, it still doesn't make you feel great, but
no, you're not saying that because you watched a playoff game and the Packers look like crap. It's not like they played a good game and just lost against a phenomenal team.
I thought against
the team that played garbage, and the Packers still got blown out. Yeah, San Francisco last year. San Francisco's a phenomenal team. Green Bay played good, still lost. It is what it is. It happens.
Okay, I can live with that take, Zach. I can live with, but I do think getting a couple veterans in, sure, like bringing some veteran guys, but not at the expense of giving. And a lot of these guys, to Jared's point, are under contract, will be extension eligible in the upcoming, not this year, but the next year. There's some wiggle room, right? I mean, this would be the year, but it's also not like your window, not like the Bucks window's 8 to 10 years with Giannis. You don't have that kind of window, in the NFL by any means. I mean, I don't even know what you'd say a window. Look at San Francisco this year, right? I mean, obviously injuries played a part, but that's another team that had to pay the young core. Once they pay Purdy, whatever. But you probably give the window, right? 2 to 3 years tops.
Mm-hmm. Zach, I can make you feel a little better about your season. So you lost to 3 teams this year, correct? Besides the Bears, because the Bears, that was week 18, whatever. You lost to the Vikings, the Lions, and the Eagles. That's it, right?
Yep.
So let's just say, and you got the 7th seed, right? Let's just say the Vikings lost a game or two here or there, and the Lions lost a game or two. They ended 13-4, 12-5, right? And then say the Packers won week 18 against the Bears. Okay, so then the Bears end up with, or the Packers end up with, 11-7 record, and they get the 6th seed. Okay, they play the Texans first round of the playoffs, or they play the Rams, and they beat them. Okay, now you're moving on, and you're playing against, the Vikings or the Lions. You're one game away from the conference championship.
But I'm not talking about the results of what happened.
I'm just trying to let
talking
you know
about
what could have happened.
Well, yeah, they could have won the Super Bowl. The Colts could have won the Super Bowl this year too. They played good in one other
You're not
playoff
listening to me.
games.
You're not listening to me. It's hard to beat the Eagles, in Philadelphia. It's hard. They couldn't control most of that stuff. They had no chance of winning the division at all, so they weren't going to get a home playoff game. Where you look at the Rams and the Texans, they didn't have good years. The Packers had better years than them. They had more wins. They looked more dominant. But now the Rams and Texans are moving on. The Packers are in Cancun. Like, it's hard to say that the Packers had a bad season when you look at these teams that are still in there and they're moving on. The Packers had more wins, like I said, and they're at home. So how can you say that?
They got
blow it all up, run it again? They got
instead of the Chargers first round. What I'm saying is, every time, like the games where they needed to show up, they came out flat. They looked like a steaming pile of garbage for a good chunk of the season, a lot of the games.
And who do you blame for that? The receiving core or Jordan Love?
Not all the games are Jordan Love's fault.
Yeah, but it's not the receiving core's fault. They did exactly what they needed to. I wouldn't blame them for one game.
They didn't help out Love as much as a true number one would in those games.
A true number one would just clog it. I don't know what you're saying here. They all have that number one potential, but they're not a number one. Like going into the league, you thought Watson, going into this year or last year,
no, they're all wide receiver twos.
Yeah, but you thought Watson would be your number one. They're all receiver twos, sure. But you thought Watson was your number one. Dobbs was 2.
Yeah, and nobody stepped up.
Yeah, then later in the year, you're like, oh, Reed's number 1. Dobbs is kind of out, so Watson's 2. Maybe Wicks is 3 now. Maybe, okay, now Dobbs is back. He's number 2. Now Watson's hurt. Reed's number 1. Like, it's always someone can step up. And, I mean, for the most part, they did.
Nobody stepped up, though.
What do you mean nobody stepped up?
Always somebody can step up, and then nobody does, and you look like the Packers did on Sunday.
Okay, how about Tucker Kraft stepping up and having a great year when Musgrave got hurt? I mean, players step up. That's what they do. Bo Melton, Malik Heath.
He stepped up, but
you don't know what football is.
In order for Kraft to be the number one, he'd have to step up to Travis Kelce or Trey McBride levels.
Is that what you're expecting him to do? If you're expecting that, then you're already in the wrong mindset. Like, nothing's going to happen.
I'm expecting them to go get Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson to play like Garrett Wilson.
Oh, my God.
Zach has the Packers standard down.
If that's what your number one like offseason goal is, look forward to 5 years of mediocrity, because that's what it's going to be. Like, I'm sorry, Garrett Wilson hasn't helped the Jets in so long, and they have a solid team.
All right, come on. That is just
What has Garrett Wilson done to help them? What has Garrett Wilson done? Caught a few touchdowns here and there?
Trevor Siemian as quarterback. What do you expect?
Like 3 years ago. What?
Zach Wilson. That was just last year. These are the guys.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Trevor Siemian played like 2 games because what's his name?
Tim Boyle.
You have to have a quarterback that can win games first. That's Jordan Love. We got that.
I don't know if you got that. I really
Wilson,
don't. I really don't. I don't think you got
now
that.
you're just trolling.
I don't think Jordan Love right now is proven that he can step up in the big games. You can't blame an offensive.
At least give him a shot.
Okay, you can. The only players you can blame is you can't blame the offense or the receivers for most of the time. You can blame Jordan Love for having bad games, like he did against the Eagles, or you can blame the defense, the secondary,
because receivers aren't getting open.
We can agree on something, Zach. We can agree that you guys need a solid cornerback that can play, unlike Jair, who can actually stay healthy and support that team to have a solid secondary. You got your tight end in McKinney, who had a great year. It's not. Maybe an edge. Maybe you need a defensive edge because, I mean, sorry to say, your front four are good, but like you're not getting to the quarterback. You're not getting much pressure. Jalen Hurts had 10 seconds of play.
Defense wasn't the problem.
Against bad teams, you played the AFC South. You played against the AFC South. What team is going to go up against you in the AFC South?
But even
you guys beat us when we had our starters, and you had a bad.
They look good against everyone.
Excluding the Minnesota first game, I'd say that was a game where I'd say the Packers defense really faltered. But overall, this team
they got screwed by the offense.
This is so recency bias too. You're like, wow, we just lost, blow it up. Give it a month or two, and you'll be like, actually, no. I like this team. Like the Brewers, for example. I thought the Brewers, when we lost, we knew we were losing Willie Adames, we were losing Devin Williams, and you end that season losing to the Mets, you're like,
that
wow,
way too.
I don't want to see anyone. Yeah, get everyone off this team. Keep Churio, keep Yelich, keep a few starting pitchers. Everyone else gone. I hate this team. We suck. It's gonna be the same thing every year. But now it's been 2-3 months. I'm like, I think we have a great chance to do it. I think we're gonna win the division. I think we're you just lost a few days ago. Well, it's not delusion. It's just recent. You're down on your team right now. You're in denial.
It's the grieving process.
Yeah, you're grieving right now. Like, give it a month or so, and you'll be like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, but I said the same thing before they lost the playoff game.
I'm sure Texans fans said the same thing too going into that Chargers game, and then they won. I mean, I'm sure Vikings fans were like, yeah, we're great, we're amazing, we're the best team in the league. Then they lost.
All right, so if you're a Chargers fan,
NFL
you
playoffs.
think we should just run it back with the same exact team, everything the same, not change a thing?
A Chargers fan?
Texans fan.
Texans? Well, it depends. Every team's different. So if I'm the Texans, you think you run it back next year with this team?
I wouldn't want to.
Why?
They look like
had
garbage
injuries all
for
year.
a big chunk of the year.
Stephon Diggs was hurt. Tank Dell was out. Nico Collins was out for a long time. CJ Stroud had a bad year.
Yeah, Diggs is a free agent.
Okay, even that. Tank Dell and Nico Collins are a solid 1-2, maybe the best 1-2 in the league besides Jamar and Higgins.
Even when those two guys were playing, that offense still looked like garbage some games.
Joe Mixon had a great year. He'll be fine. Stroud just had a bad year. I mean, I don't like Stroud. I think he's overrated, but I don't know. I think it's the same with you and Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. Do you think that the Jaguars stick with Trevor Lawrence? Like, they didn't look good this year, but you still believe in them.
They paid him a lot of money.
Yeah, you have to stick.
I think they stick with Trevor Lawrence, but I think there's a lot of other things they need to change.
Okay, so what would you do with the Texans then? What would you do? Their defense is great. Their offensive line is the only bad thing on their team. Stroud kind of scrambles for his life. You'd patch up that offensive line.
I draft a couple linemen right away. My first round pick's going to offensive line.
Yeah,
Bobby Sloat needs to get his shit together again.
You don't fire your coach because your coach is great. I mean, you built a great roster. Yeah. Maybe offensive coordinator. Defense is fine.
You run the defense back with D'Amico. Yeah. Maybe you can go out and get a couple veteran linemen. That's what we saw Carolina do, and their offensive line numbers got a lot better year over year.
Yeah, obviously. Exactly. But what we're saying here is maybe do this, maybe do that. What you're saying, Zach, is I want to see a wide receiver 1. I want to see this. I want to see that. Get everything out of here. Like, you're making all these decisions when you're
being realistic.
11 games. I mean, it's just like, it's so unrealistic to say.
I think I'm being pretty realistic.
We lost to the Eagles, so let's just blow up everything. Like, it doesn't make sense. Oh, drop my mic. We're good.
Wow. Well, on that note, we have Milwaukee Bucks basketball here starting. Was there any other remarks before we wrap up the show?
Nah, you'll get him next year, Zach. Don't worry about it. Chin up.
Zach's got a lot.
Garrett Wilson's going for 150 in the Packers playoff game next year.
You have a lot better chance of getting T. Higgins than you do Garrett Wilson. That's all I'll say.
I'm fine with T. Higgins. That'll work.
I don't know why you want Garrett Wilson so much. You love Garrett Wilson, so that's why. But T. Higgins might.
What if Zach would want
T. Higgins
Trevor Lawrence for Jordan Love?
Yeah. Garrett Wilson's probably not leaving. If Devontae and Rodgers are gone, they're going to keep one of them. Like, I'm sure Garrett Wilson will stay.
I thought Rodgers was going to get released.
Yeah, he might be done. I don't know.
Oh, well, I think retirement or get released and do the Favre thing. Not Minnesota, though. Imagine that. Imagine. Yeah. You could go Favre's route.
The Vikings.
I mean, hold on. It's not the craziest thing, right?
No, it's not. I mean, they have JJ, but who knows? Maybe get him as a backup or something.
That'd be crazy.
Let him
Jones sticks around. Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting. And McCarthy, I think is going to go. I want to mention that. I saw McCarthy to Chicago, and McCarthy to Saints was picking up some buzz.
Are we talking Mike McCarthy, not JJ?
Yeah, Mike.
Okay. I saw it to Chicago too. That'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Let him go. Let him go there.
We'll see how the other coaching. The other thing I wanted to say was Robert Saleh. That was what Zach was talking about last week. He's gonna get a job, I think. I mean, based on like how he's getting the interviews he's getting, and based on kind of the interest, I really think he's gonna get either that Jacksonville job or the Dallas job.
I want him to have that Colts DC job, but that's not going to happen.
No, I think he's gonna get a head coaching job again. I really do.
Well, we're looking at a few DCs right now.
Gus Bradley will be missed.
By who? His family?
No, he'll get a job somewhere, right?
Yeah, he'll be the next Bears head coach or Panthers head coach or something.
If Arthur Smith is getting head coaching interviews,
wait 2 years and he'll be the new Giants head coach. Gus Bradley will be or something, All
right. Okay, that'll wrap it here. Zack Rausch, Jared Valleskey, myself, Drew Skyberg here on this Wednesday night. Thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Drew Sports Crew, the Journey Million, the perfect podcast for you.